Hi readers, Chris here. It's a bit hazy, muggy, and humid today in New York, so hopefully I can get through this whole video without breaking into a bunch of sweat. But today I'm going to be talking about my most anticipated book releases for next month, September 2021. Some months I have a hard time actually coming up with 10 books that I am interested in, but this month, for September, I actually had a hard time narrowing it down to just 10. As always, if there's one you're more interested than another one, I will be putting chapter times in the description box down below. These books are not in any sort of order other than by publication date and what I am most interested in. So I'm going to jump in with number 1, which is The Last Legacy by Adrienne Young. You may recognize this name if it sounds familiar to you. It's because of her other popular series, Fable, and the sequel, Namesake. But this is supposed to be a new standalone book, and according to Amazon, it says that New York Times bestselling author Adrienne Young returns with The Last Legacy, a captivating standalone about family and blood ties, reinventing yourself and controlling your own destiny. When a letter from her uncle Henrik arrives on Bryn Roth's 18th birthday, summoning her back to Bastion, Bryn is eager to prove herself and her family and finally take her place in her long-lost family. Henrik has plans for Bryn, but she must win everyone's trust if she wants to hold any power in the delicate architecture of her family. That's a mouthful. It doesn't take long for her to see that the Roths are entangled in shadows. Despite their growing influence in upscale Bastion, their hands are still in the kind of dirty business that got Bryn's parents killed years ago. With a forbidden romance to contend with and dangerous work ahead, the cost of being accepted into the Roths may be more than Bryn can pay. Sounds interesting. Sounds like a mystery slash maybe a little bit of a thriller going on here. I believe it still falls into the YA genre, but I think it sounds interesting to me. If it sounds interesting to you, The Last Legacy will be available on September 7th. Number 2 is going to be The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And if the cover of this book looks familiar to you, it's because it is the sequel to the very popular The Inheritance Games. So The Inheritance Games, I believe, came out last year, 2020, so this is now the sequel. So according to Amazon, it says, The Inheritance Games ended with a bombshell, and now Avery has to pick up the pieces and find the man who might hold the answers to all of her questions, including why Tobias left his entire fortune to Avery, a virtual stranger, rather than to his own daughter or grandsons. Thanks to a DNA test, Avery knows. I'm not sure if this is a spoiler from the previous book, so I'm going to skip ahead for a minute. Blah, 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 blah. As the mystery grows and the plot thickens, Grayson and Jameson, two of the enigmatic and magnetic Hawthorne grandsons, continue to pull Avery in different directions. And there are threats lurking around every corner as adversaries emerge, who will stop at nothing to see Avery out of the picture by any means necessary. With non-stop action, aspirational jet-setting, knives-out-like family intrigue, swoon-worthy romance, and billions of dollars hanging in the balance, The Hawthorne Legacy will thrill Jennifer Lynn Barnes fans and new readers alike. Whew, bit of a mouthful there, but I think I got through it. I have not read The Inheritance Games, but it is on my TBR. I'm hoping to find it at a library sale one of these days, so this sequel sounds super exciting. If it sounds exciting to you, the Hawthorne Games, or the Hawthorne Legacy, I should say, will be available on September 7th. Next up, we have Certain Dark Things by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. And yes, I just mentioned this author in another recent video because she just released Velvet Was the Night like a month or two ago. So apparently this woman is just writing up a storm over there. But this one sounds a little bit different than her other books. Her other books, I have not read them, so I could be totally wrong. But from what I've heard, they seem more like mystery thriller type things, where this one sounds more supernatural. So according to Amazon, it says that Certain Dark Things is a pulse-pounding neo-noir that reimagines vampire lore. Sounds exciting. Welcome to Mexico City, an oasis in a sea of vampires. Domingo, a lonely garbage-collecting street kid, is just trying to survive its heavily policed streets when a jaded vampire on the run swoops into his life. Alt, the descendant of Aztec blood drinkers, is smart, beautiful, and dangerous. Domingo is mesmerized. Alt needs to quickly escape the city, far from the rival narco-vampire clan restlessly pursuing her. Her plan doesn't include Domingo, but little by little, Alt finds herself warming up to the scrappy young man and his undeniable charm. As the trail of corpses stretches behind her, local cops and crime bosses both start closing in. Vampires, humans, cops, and criminals collide in the dark streets of Mexico City. Do Alt and Domingo even stand a chance of making it out alive, or will the city devour them all? I love the sound of this book. This sounds right up my alley. It sounds like, part vampire, part crime drama. Like, it sounds really, really cool. It does sound like a neo-noir reimagining of vampire lore, which I think is totally cool, totally badass. So if you think this sounds cool, Certain Dark Things will be available on September 7th. Number 4 is going to be Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. Again, I know that Jay Kristoff is a super popular author. I'm sad to say I have not read anything by him yet, but I do have a bunch of his books on my TBR. So Empire of the Vampire sounds like it's going to be the first book in a new series from him. And according to Amazon, it says that it's calling it an illustrated volume, which sounds super cool. An illustrated volume in a astonishing new dark fantasy series. So this is how it starts. From holy cup comes holy light. The faithful hand sets world aright. And in the 7 martyrs' sight, mere man shall end this endless night. Ooh. Wiggling my fingers if anyone can't see me. It has been 27 long years since the last sunrise. For nearly 3 decades, vampires have waged war against humanity, building their eternal empire even as they tear down our own. Now, only a few tiny sparks of light endure in a sea of darkness. Gabrielle de Leon is a silver saint, a member of a holy brotherhood dedicated to defending realm and church from the creatures of the night. But even the Silver Order could not stem the tide once daylight failed us. Now only Gabriel remains. Imprisoned by the very monsters he vowed to destroy, the last Silver Saint is forced to tell his story. A story of legendary battles and forbidden love, of faith lost and friendships won, of the wars of blood and the forever king, and the quest for humanity's last remaining hope, the Holy Grail. Dun, da, da, da. Okay, I know I'm being a little bit corny here, but I think this book sounds super exciting. Again, I know his books are popular, and I can see why, because they sound really interesting. So if this sounds interesting to you, or if you're a big Jay Kristoff fan, Empire of the Vampire will be available on September 14th. Number 5 is going to be Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. Ooh, and if this name sounds familiar to you, he wrote the super incredibly popular book, The House in the Cerulean Sea, which is another one I'm sad to say haven't read yet. It's been on my TBR for a while now. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say anything bad about this book, so that makes me more excited for this newest one. And according to Amazon, they are calling this book A Man Called Uwe Meets the Good Place in Under the Whispering Door, a delightful queer love story from T.J. Klune, author of the New York Times and USA bestselling The House in the Cerulean Sea. So welcome to Sharon's Crossing. The tea is hot, the scones are fresh, and the dead are just passing through. When a reaper comes to collect Wallace from his own funeral, Wallace begins to suspect he might be dead. When Hugo, the owner of a peculiar tea shop, promises to help him cross over, Wallace decides he is definitely dead. But even in death, he's not ready to abandon the life he has barely lived. So when Wallace is given 1 week to cross over, he sets about living a lifetime in several days. Hilarious, haunting, and kind, Under the Whispering Door is an uplifting story about a life spent at the office and a death spent building a home. I mean, it sounds really cute. I don't quite know where the love part comes in. Maybe something between Wallace and this Hugo character. I don't know. Again, I haven't heard anyone say anything bad about the Cerulean Sea, so hopefully this one will live up to these same expectations. So if you are a fan of T.G. Klune and you're interested in Under the Whispering Door, it will be available on September 21st. Number 6 is going to be As Good as Dead, and this is the finale, the 3rd book, or the final book in the Good Girls Guide to Murder series by Holly Jackson. Now, this is kind of a YA mystery series. If you're not familiar with it, they're bestsellers, blah, 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 blah. So this is going to be the end of a mystery series. So there may be slight spoilers in this explanation about it, but I'll try to breeze past them if I catch them. I haven't read the story, so I don't know them all, but bear with me here. So according to Amazon, it says Pip is about to head out to college, but she is still haunted by the way her last investigation ended. She's used to online death threats in the wake of her viral true crime podcast, but she can't help noticing an anonymous person who keeps asking her, who will look for you when you're the one who disappears? Soon threats escalate and Pip realizes that someone is following her in real life. When she starts to find connections between her stalker and a local serial killer caught 6 years ago, she wonders if maybe the wrong man is behind bars. Police refuse to act, so Pip has only one choice: find the suspect herself or be the next victim. As the deadly game plays out, Pip discovers that everything in her small town is coming full circle, and if she doesn't find the answers this time, she will be the one who disappears. Dun dun dun. Sounds exciting to me. Again, I have not read any of the Good Girls Guide to Murder books, but I know a bunch of people that have. They're super popular. I've heard that they're really good, so maybe I'll get around to reading them one day. But if you are a fan of this series and you're interested in As Good as Dead, the 3rd and final book in this series, it will be available on September 28th. Number 7 is going to be Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. Now, when I first heard this book, it made me think of the Lego movie and Cloud Cuckoo Land, if you've ever seen that. These two things are not related at all, I found out. So anyway, from the Pulitzer Prize award-winning author of All the Light We Cannot See, perhaps the most best-selling and beloved literary fiction of our time, according to Amazon, comes the highly anticipated Cloud Cuckoo Land. Set in Constantinople, set in Constantinople in the 15th century, and in a small town in present-day Idaho, and on an interstellar ship decades from now, Anthony Doerr's gorgeous 3rd novel is a triumph of imagination and compassion. A soaring story about children on the cusp of adulthood in worlds in peril who find resilience, hope, and a book. In Cloud Cuckoo Land, Doerr has created a magnificent tapestry of times and places that reflect our vast interconnectedness with outer space, with other species, with each other, with those who've lived before us, and with those who will be here after we're gone. Whew, that's a mouthful. I could go on. So basically we've got 3 different timelines going on. We have a young girl living in Constantinople back in the 15th century. We have a librarian living in Idaho, and then we have some future space travelers going on. I don't quite know how all these 3 storylines intersect. I do know some people that have already read the book over on Instagram that have given it pretty good reviews, so it's definitely something that I'm interested in getting around to reading one of these days. If you are interested in reading Cloud Cuckoo Land, it will be available on September 28th. Number 8 is going to be Horseman, A Tale of Sleepy Hollow by Christina Henry. Christina Henry is another author who I have never read, and I had actually never heard of her until this year when one of my fellow booktubers, Reading Nymph, I believe she was the one that has read some of her books recently, so I first heard about her there, and she sounded like a really interesting author who mixes fantasy with horror and those type of things. So, Horseman, A Sleepy Hollow Tale, according to Amazon, it says, everyone in Sleepy Hollow knows about the Horseman, but no one really believes in him. Not even Ben Van Brunt's grandfather, Brom Bones, who was there when it was said the Horseman chased the upstart Crane out of town. Brom says that's just legend. The village gossips talking. More than 30 years after the storied events, the village is a quiet place. 14-year-old Ben loves to play Sleepy Hollow Boys, reenacting the events that Brom once lived through. But then Ben and a friend stumble across the headless body of a child in the woods near the village, and the discovery makes Ben question everything the adults in Sleepy Hollow have ever said. Could the Horseman be real after all, or does something even more sinister stalk the woods? So again, this sounds like part true crime, part horror, maybe a little bit fantasy, I don't know, but I am excited to find out. So if you are excited to read The Horseman, it will be available on September 28th. Number 9, we have The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik. And again, this may look familiar to you because it is the sequel to her other super popular book, A Deadly Education. Now, I know there were some mixed reviews about this one that I've heard over the past, year or two, but I'm still interested in it. I'm interested in magic schools, all that stuff. So The Last Graduate will definitely be going on my TBR. So, according to Amazon, it says, in wisdom, shelter. That's the official model of the Scholomance. I suppose you could even argue it's true. Only the wisdom is hard to come by, so the shelter's rather scant. Our beloved school does its best to devour all its students. But now that I've reached my senior year and have actually won myself a handful of allies, it suddenly developed a very particular craving for me. And even if I somehow make it through the endless waves of I don't even know this word, endless waves of Malphisaria that it keeps throwing me in between grueling homework assignments, I haven't any idea how my allies and I are going to make it through the graduation hall alive. Unless, of course, I finally accept my foretold destiny of dark sorcery and destruction. That would certainly let me sail right out of here. Of course, the wisdom, surely. But I'm not giving in, not to the Mals, not to fate, and especially not to the Scholomance. I'm going to get myself and my friends out of this hideous place for good, even if it's the last thing I do. So again, I haven't read book 1, but book 2 sounds interesting to me. So if book 2 sounds interesting to you, The Last Graduate will be available on September 28th. So finally, that brings me around to number 10, which is going to be probably everyone's most anticipated book, Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. If you've not read Stephanie Garber's Caraval series, you are missing out. Caraval, the first one, was one of my favorite books from last year. The rest of the series I was a little bit on, but Once Upon a Broken Heart takes place in the same universe, just with slightly different characters. So, Once Upon a Broken Heart. For as long as she can remember, Evangeline Fox has believed in love and happy endings until she learns that the love of her life will marry another. Desperate to stop the wedding and heal her wounded heart, Evangeline strikes a deal with the charismatic but wicked Prince of Hearts. In exchange for his help, he asks for 3 kisses, and to be given at the time and place of his choosing. But after Evangeline's first promised kiss, she learns that bargaining with an immortal is a dangerous game, and that the Prince of Hearts wants far more than she's pledged. He has plans for Evangeline, plans that will either end in the greatest happily ever after, or the most exquisite tragedy. If you're not familiar with the Prince of Hearts, he was in the first series, I would definitely recommend reading that so that you can better understand who he is going into this book. I'm super excited to read Once Upon a Broken Heart. If you're super excited for Once Upon a Broken Heart, it will be available on September 28th. So those are my top 10 picks for this month. Let me know which book you are most excited for. Is it one of the ones I mentioned or something that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel, and I will be talking to you all later. Happy reading!